What's up, everybody? Welcome to Future Boutique, presented by Microsoft. Day 3 of our coverage here at Advertising Week, New York. I'm your host, Jeffrey Colon, joined by my illustrious co-hosts, Jillian Lax. Jillian, how's your day 3 been going so far?
It's going pretty good now that I know I'm illustrious, so no complaints. Having a good time here.
What sights and sounds have you seen so far?
Sights and sounds. I've seen a lot of really cool stuff. I've met some fun people. I've picked up a ton of odd jobs. I've been very, 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 very busy. You're lucky you got me back here. I've had a lot of fun out there, meeting the folks of Advertising Week.
Well, we got a pretty good show coming up. Who do we have on episode 3?
Oh, we have some fabulous guests. We have Erik Diehn, the CEO of Stitcher, to talk to us about podcasting. We have Christi Olson, our guru of all things evangelism with the Microsoft advertising team. And we have, wait for it, you're going to get excited. Don't get too excited. Don't fall off your chair. David Shing.
Yes, the illustrious Shing, the digital prophet, will be joining us from Oath. But first, we're going to talk to a really interesting person, CEO of a company, Futurism. His name is Alex Klokus, and he's going to talk to us about artificial intelligence and blockchain. And we're joined here by a true futurist, Alex Klokus, CEO of Futurism. Now, Alex, you guys are behind the gravity blanket. Explain a little bit more about the importance of that and how you sort of are reshaping the direct-to-consumer model.
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thank you very much for having me. So Futurism was really a media company when we started, focused on breakthrough science and technology. So taking topics like artificial intelligence, blockchain, and robotics, and communicating them in a way that was more interesting and accessible to a mainstream audience. In early 2017, we had a hypothesis. That hypothesis was whether we could leverage this community and this audience that we've built to test, validate, and launch new direct consumer products that we know they wanted to buy. And so the first iteration of that ultimately became the gravity blanket. And the process was pretty interesting. So really what we did was we took this audience, we surveyed them, we came up with a concept for a weighted blanket, we then tested the messaging and the narrative around that product, came up with the brand Gravity, focused on sleep and wellness, and then we launched it on Kickstarter to minimize downside risk, make sure we knew we had a built-in audience, and the product went viral and it's become quite a large brand to date.
Now, we were talking off camera, both of us fellow futurists. There's not one session here on blockchain. And of course, if you go on Twitter and you look at a lot of people in marketing, they're like, blockchain's a scam, it's a joke. I mean, why should we be paying attention to blockchain? Why should it actually be integrated in, at least one session here at Advertising Week?
Yeah, so I think that what we're seeing with blockchain right now is simply part of the hype cycle. Because the prices are going down, the amount of interest and attention that is being paid to that industry is certainly at a low. But simultaneously, all of these individuals and these companies that raised a lot of money have been focused on building. And so over the next 6 months, we're going to start to see the release of a lot of very, very interesting blockchain applications. Now, in my opinion, blockchain is primarily a decentralized trust mechanism. It allows for two parties to interact without having an intermediary and trust each other. Now, you can think of a handful of different applications of that are particularly interesting. One is around a store of value. Right? So right now we have Bitcoin around that. That does not rely on any centralized authority to exist. Then you have the application layer, which is what Ethereum is currently building, and essentially is to date. And then you can imagine a handful of other layers. But to me, what I think the most exciting application of blockchain is in the financial markets. And it's around simply the tokenization of previously illiquid assets. So you can imagine a world where you can actually buy fractional ownership in real estate and trade that token in and out. Whereas right now, if you're looking to, let's say, invest in real estate in a specific market, you'll have to buy an entire home at a very high valuation, and it's not particularly liquid. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in that sector in the future.
It's fascinating. And where can people get more information on blockchain? Because I feel like, you know, there are the subject matter experts out there, but are there any films or any sort of like videos that you sort of encourage people to check out?
Yeah, so we actually just finished what we are calling the first feature documentary on blockchain. It's called Trust Machine. It is directed by Alex Winter and narrated by Rosario Dawson in partnership with a blockchain media company called Singular DTV. And that is actually going to be released October 16th in theaters in LA and New York. And that'll also be online after the fact.
This is great. I love talking about finding the future together. Alex, thanks for joining us here on Future Boutique.
Thanks for having me.
We're here with Sean Halter, who is the host of the CMO Suite podcast. Sean, we've been talking a lot about this.
We have.
It's an important audience. What are you learning from this podcast?
Just start with the list of who's not doing a podcast these days. Everybody is using that as a content driver. For me, it was just a great opportunity to talk to a lot of the brands and people that we've been trying to get a hold of, find out what's important to them.
And what's the one thing that you think from talking to all these CMOs on that show, on the podcast, what's keeping them up at night?
What's keeping almost any of us up at night is how fast all this is changing. I'm old, I'm 49, my club age is 39, but all of this is happening so quickly, and it just feels like a foreign language. And so to a lot of them, it used to be just they needed to know their side of the marketing equation. But now you need to know the entire funnel. You need to know sales. You need to know product. You need to know platform. You need to know CRMs. And for them, I think they're just trying to keep up. They're trying to keep their head above water. They're trying to figure out where can they learn this kind of content, but also build their own personal brands. I mean, let's be honest. We're all building our own brands out there these days. How crazy is that?
Sean, what's the one thing that you can tell our viewers in terms of the CMOs that you're speaking to?
It's all about content, right? When we decided to do the CMO Suite, we decided to do it because we felt like there was a need for some of that content. I couldn't find really good short interviews from CMOs about what was, just as you had asked, before, what's keeping them up at night. And so I think that's the key. The key is finding the time, finding the content. Shows like yours are great ways to be able to just take good snackable pieces away from how quick things are changing and how they can try to figure out how to solve the problems that they have and the problems that their clients have as well.
Sean, thanks for joining us on
guys.
Future Boutique. Our next guest is going to talk about a big area here at Advertising Week, and that is voice and podcasting. Erik Diehn, CEO of Stitcher. Glad to have you today.
Thanks, great to be here, man.
Where do you see the next wave of podcasting going? What are some things that you're talking about here this week?
We're using our voices right now. Voice is huge. It has been huge for a very long time. We have known, I think, really since the inception of podcasting about 10 years ago, how powerful podcasts are, that intimacy, that having the host in your ear talking about a subject that you love. It's a great environment for an ad because it is such an engaging, intimate experience. And now we're at a point where we've got the scale to match the power of the experience. So for us, we're at 73 million monthly listeners to podcasting in the US right now, about 45 million weekly listeners. The big question for us is how do we get that to 100 million weekly? We know that at least half the US population knows what podcasts are. People have heard of Serial. People are kind of excited, but there's still only 40, 50 million people listening on a weekly basis. And we have to figure out what is the gap between knowing about a podcast, knowing what podcasts are, and listening. Part of that's content, part of that is making great shows, whether it is shows like Serial, having the third season out right now, huge true crime shows like Dr. Death, which is out, the series we did with Marvel, the Wolverine scripted series that we did. We got to find new content forms that appeal to other chunks of the audience that aren't listening, and then we got to use discovery and personalization to help people figure out what's there and help them discover that there's content to listen to. And I think as we do that, platforms, Amazon Alexa, Google Home, all these platforms that extend voice capabilities into new environments will help with that growth too.
Where are most people still consuming podcasts? Is it mobile? Is it
It is predominantly mobile at this point. I mean, I think there's a point a few years ago where desktop listening was still a big part of it. There's still a fair amount, more than you would think. People sit at work and they listen to Joe Rogan or they listen to Comedy Bang Bang or some other long form show to relax. But a ton of listening happens at home, and part of that is coming now from speakers and other sources. So it's a mix. Mobile's definitely dominant, but we are starting to see growth in auto, in home, in smart speakers, in other kind of contexts.
Awesome. Erik
Yeah.
Diehn, CEO of Stitcher. Thanks for joining us on Future Boutique.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Our continuing coverage here at Advertising Week 2018 in New York City on Future Boutique. And I am joined by my colleague, search evangelist for Microsoft, Christi Olson. I've had a hard time scheduling this interview with you because it's the 72nd event you have spoken at this year. Looks like you just got off the plane from Germany.
I did. I just actually got back from the G50 Summit. It's a search summit in Elmau, Germany, where the top minds in search get together, meet, and talk about what's new, what's coming, and really strategize of how we take search to the next level in the upcoming year.
Well, you're a mom, you travel a lot. When do you find time to eat?
Well, what's funny enough is we have these absolutely amazing Bantam bagels that are provided. They're here all week. I am so excited. I hear they have schmear in the middle, so hopefully this won't explode.
We should eat some before we get on with our interview here.
These are actually delicious. So good.
Love it. Love it. So, do you think, and pardon me while I'm in between bites here, that with all the travel that you do, with all the speaking that you do as an evangelist for Microsoft with search, that you need an assistant to sort of help you out?
I do. I need somebody in my life that can help me book the travel, organize what I'm doing, understand what I have to do when, so I can get from point A to B. But I'm pretty lucky because I actually have a type of assistant that helps me with that on a regular basis. I end up using Cortana to really help me with the productivity side of my daily work, so that I can make sure I'm keeping track of emails, understanding how to get from point A to B. Like today, I was brave, I took the subway to get up here. Wouldn't normally do that if I didn't have someone that could help guide me to where I need to go, so I could get here on time to meet with you.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about, because you and I are always powwowing in your office at Microsoft. Talk a little bit about, where you think search might be going, some of the stuff that you're talking about here at Advertising Week in terms of intelligent search.
Yeah, so search is sort of shifting and changing. If we like to think about this, especially as you talk about digital assistants and intelligent agents, and just for the crowd, intelligent agents, the breakdown is a combination of voice-enabled assistants through either voice search or digital assistants, chatbots, which could be voice-enabled or text-enabled, as well as image-enabled, as well as voice skills and voice actions. So those intelligent agents in search are shifting how consumers and how searchers are using tools and technology. They're moving away, and it's being disrupted because we're moving away from touch as the primary user interface to everything from our voice and gestures, hand motions, being used as search. It's a huge shift for marketers because you're changing how you engage and how you essentially work with your customers and clients, how they find you and how they're searching for you.
Like, what verticals do you think are going to use some of these new tools first? Where do you see that happening?
Well, one of the interesting ones that I love right now, especially as you think about the visual aspect and elements of artificial intelligence-led search, is actually in e-commerce. So I loved this Drindle. I saw it while I was in Germany at Oktoberfest. I took a picture of a woman in the tent and was able to figure out that it was Kruger brand. I was able to find a store to purchase this while I was in Munich by taking a picture using computer vision to identify the brand, the product, and then identify where to make that purchase. If you think about search, it's still the same basic. I'm looking for something, but instead of using text or words, I'm taking a picture to get more context behind what it is I'm looking for. It's a whole new type of search that a lot of consumers really we're on the tip of the iceberg, and consumers are starting to think about this, but brands and marketers haven't even thought about the power of commercial-based shopping intent from images.
Glad that we could get you here with your busy schedule. Christi Olson, search evangelist for Microsoft. Thanks for joining us on Future Boutique.
Thank you, and if you get a chance, stop by our booth. We have amazing bagels with schmear inside. These are delicious.
Yum, yum.
Look, I do travel a lot, it's true. And I love cultures I don't understand, particularly when they're spoken in Spanish. But local cultures mean a lot. Like, I go to Ghana. This is a brand of cola. These guys are wondering why this will never be a global brand. I said, it's pea cola, dude. Nobody wants to drink pea at 10 in the morning. Doesn't work.
That sounds good. I'll have that.
And we're back with our continuing coverage at Advertising Week, New York City, here on Future Boutique. I am joined by David Shing, also known as Shingy, digital prophet at Oath.
Yes.
How you been?
I've been fantastic now. This is the best thing I'm going to do all week, man, hanging out with you for a few minutes. This is awesome.
Listen, I wanted to talk to you about sort of this outsider theme. You've been on it forever in terms of companies needing to pay attention to the niche voices out there, which they never do.
Right.
Why should we be listening to more of that?
Okay, great question. There's a couple of things that are really intriguing for me. In an organization, you have this kind of curve. People that love the executive team, people that can't stand the business and are going to be out in 6 months anyway, so they're the ones that are mumble grumble. And you've got this bulk of the organization that wants to be shifted one way or the other. And typically, when I get to speak, and it's an honor to speak to these brands, when I speak to them, a lot of them are like, yeah, we get it. Well, then why you have so much churn? And how come you're not innovating? What's up with, saying you need to be disrupted when you're not disrupting yourself? The problem is that they don't really action the middle part of the organization do one way or the other. And they can't do them themselves. It's the bit in the middle that matters. And you can say you're going to incubate internally, and that is awesome. But typically they suck at executing, and they're not really listening to where the honest audit is of a brand. And so they do the same. And it's a more important time now to have a voice, because if you're not starting to disrupt yourself, I promise you, brother, you're being disrupted.
Now, trend spotting, you've been doing it forever. I've been following you forever in this space.
I have, yeah.
What are some things people should have on their radar as we get closer to 2020?
Well, it really depends on who we talk about as the audience. So take a CMO. Bloody hell, poor bugger. You've got like 5 or 6 people jamming at them. You got technologists saying, hey, it's all about tech, don't worry about it, we've got you sorted. You got media like us saying, hey man, it's all about making sure you have an editorial voice. We're going to sort you into being a long-form publisher. Awesome. You've got independent agencies coming in and saying your creative sucks. You need to talk about influencer or macro, micro, celebrity. And then you've got other people like traditional agencies saying we don't own anything, but we're going to refer you where you need to. And you have creative agencies saying we're going to build you the best piece of commercial, but it's not going to scale, so we need to think about that. So it's this confusion conundrum. If we talk about that audience, so the person who controls the purse strings to the industry, the things that they need to watch out for, I think that straight up, man, is empathy. Meaning you have to have a purpose. And I'm not talking PSA, I mean purpose. Why? All I hear is, this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna do it. There's a shiny object, let's chase it. I'm like, really? You're still there? It's not a popularity contest, man. It's all about different metrics. And part of that for me is, why do you do it? Why? And then let's talk about the execution and what the objectives are. The other thing is objectives. The industry is still measuring value based on, I think, old metrics, and I think they need to be thrown out and say, what is the real objective and what are they? And typically, let me give you an example of what I hear. People are saying this piece of creative has to sell products overnight. Oh, and by the way, it needs to build brand over time. I'm like, whoa. There are 2 conflicting objectives. The creative should be totally different and have different ways. Those 2 should never meet in the same room, in my opinion. And so given that, we shouldn't measure the same piece of creative on 2 different metrics that don't achieve that goal. So as much as we believe in it, the truth is, I don't know whether we're orchestrating it. And it's going to take time. That's why I think 2020 comfortably is a soundbite for that. The other thing is those 6 people jamming at brands, man. There needs to be a re-evaluation of what our industry actually stands for. It used to be about inspiring people to do better, and that's what I hope I still do. Now it feels like, how do you micro-measure? I'm like, whoa. The stare got sucked out of creativity, man. And so I think that's what the industry is. I think we'll get back to it. And the reason for that is people on the street expect it from a brand. It's not just about the 3 mediums anymore, the 4 mediums. It's open up to this peripheral of places. So as much as data scientists are amazing, and they are, and creative ECDs are amazing, and they are, the industry itself has got muddled, and we've lost the value of what it means.
Now, there's a lot of talk about disruption in marketing, but not a lot of talk about disruption in terms of like career development.
Oh.
What advice would you give someone who's starting like in the industry today, like a 22 or 23-year-old?
Great question. Well, the first thing is I don't think they start in our industry at 22 or 23 like I did.
That's right.
I think what you do, and by the way, I don't think it's a generalist anymore. You go to a university, you study a particular thing, but ultimately I think your career can pivot and get way out of that. I'm a classically trained designer. I can look at fontography and understand what the kerning's on. I can see if the kerning's off. Photography and fontography bothers me still today. I'm a designer, I'm a classically trained designer. But that's not what I do today. So if you think about it, I think the people that actually understand that it doesn't necessarily matter about the foundation, it matters about the future where you care about. So if you really care about the orchestration of craft, if you really care about the orchestration of communication, if you really care about the orchestration of how things piece together in a creative engineering perspective, I think careers can pivot a lot. And I also think that get in somewhere where the organization itself has the ability to keep you curious. Otherwise, you're going to be bounced out. And also allow you to orchestrate some of those dynamic ideas that you have. Because otherwise, a lot of people that I speak to, mate, they're saying, hey, I'm in a big organization because I thought they'd orchestrate change. But because they don't, I'm going to pivot and go do my own thing as a startup. That's what we're competing against. We're competing with everybody who thinks they can be a CEO. And they can today. Because when I was looking at the foundations of a startup many years ago, it was very expensive to build stuff. Today, it is not expensive to build stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the value of a brand today. So how do you orchestrate attention without it costing $1 billion? Speaking of, we're about to be run over by the popcorn machine, which I think is going to be awesome. Talk about old school marketing. These guys are keeping this shit on the street, you know what I'm saying?
Listen, wise words from Shingy, the digital prophet of Oath. Thanks for stopping by here at Future Boutique, man.
Thanks for humoring me, man.
Great to finally meet you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, brother. You got it. It's nice.
Our continuing coverage here at Advertising Week 2018, New York. Hey, Jillian.
Geoff.
What do you think of David Shing? I have wanted to interview him for 3 or 4 years. He said some really interesting things, very aspirational.
1 minute. We just have to talk about his aspirational pedicure. I mean, that was pretty gold. I have a lot of follow-up questions. I need to know more and hang out with him and go to his pedicure place with him. But agree.
Well, also thinking about someone who's aspirational, we are going to take a look at John Lombardo. He is sort of rewriting brands from the LinkedIn perspective.
Aspirational beard, but yes, agree with all of that as well.
Let's
Love
take
the
a
beard.
look.
Hi, I'm John Lombardo from LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. I'm a global brand strategist, and my job is to work with our biggest clients and agency partners to make sense of what works and doesn't work in marketing and to help them then execute effective strategies that drive the right business outcomes for them using LinkedIn. Traditional marketing has generally thought more about the strategy and the long-term benefits of marketing. Digital, again, is short-term and tactical. The blend of the two, what some people call the 60-40 rule, which is 60% of your thinking around strategy and long-term brand building, then 40% more tactical lead generation. That blend would be right for marketers. Brand loyalty isn't dead. I think you might say it never was alive. People tend to buy more from big brands. The loyalty is just in, you can remember that brand because it's bigger, and then you can buy it because it's easier to find it on shelves, online or offline. So brand loyalty isn't really even a thing. Yeah, well, people do a lot more of their research online. I think that's the biggest way that marketing has changed. So they will read a lot of your materials. Let's say 60-70% of the materials they read online. And then the final 30% of the buyer's journey, let's call it, is actually meeting with a salesperson, doing a demo, sort of more bottom of the funnel in marketing parlance. Well, I think in simple terms, people just do a lot more of the research online than they used to. They do maybe 60-70% of the research online. The remaining 30% of the buying journey, that maybe happens offline, talking to a salesperson or doing a demo, the trust building and the sales completion.
And we're joined here by Kerry Flynn, marketing reporter for Digiday. So great to have you here, Kerry.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you are pretty much, you go to everything here. You know what's happening. I really wanted to get you on the show to ask, what are the big themes that you're seeing this year at Advertising Week?
Well, as you know, there's a lot going on inside this movie theater. A lot of different shows, some good, some bad. I mean, I'll say that I started the week going to a last-minute edition panel, which was with Facebook's Carolyn Everson, who leads their marketing. It was interesting because, unlike past years, Facebook didn't have anything to announce, right? Like, there's no new formats, which has been like the thing of the past. Instead, it was just like, hey, sorry we had that massive security breach, but we're still great. And obviously you hear all these other panels where media companies like brands, publishers, all talk about Facebook, right? Like the lead of our Digiday briefing, the first one was, please don't bring up Facebook. So again, Facebook is still a huge company that takes over this event. But other than that, an interesting theme has been the rise of OTT. Downstairs on the first floor, Hulu pretty much like owns that floor, and there are a ton of panels talking about that, the networks kind of disrupting cable, which again has been a long time coming. But I think, talking to other people, we're starting to reach a point that advertisers are waking up to it. And like they're like, yeah, maybe we should be on Hulu. related to that, I heard my colleague Zihil wrote about how DTC brands, the direct-to-commerce companies, a lot of them are here. A lot of them are interested in advertising in more of those channels. Obviously, they have limited money to work with, but that's the whole point. They're trying to make more of an impression.
Now, 2 years ago, we brought up the fact that voice would be pretty big on a side stage at Advertising Week. Myself and our search evangelist, Christi Olson. Now I've seen like 7 panels on voice. And many of these panels, none of the people build any of the skills. We actually have a Cortana and an Alexa here showing off our skills. I mean, what do you think about, is voice sort of this new thing that like social 10 years ago where you have a bunch of people who really don't know what's going on talking about this area?
Well, I think what's interesting about voice is it's such a broad term. Like what you said, like there's Alexa skills and then there's podcasts.
Yes.
And I think what's interesting is obviously I was at a panel yesterday which was had Universal Music Group, Google, someone else, and it was about we've had this rise of the smart speaker, and therefore we're just having more people access audio. So sure, like millennials, older generations, they had speakers, right? You listen to music. This idea that I have something that I can talk to, and they're not just gonna provide me music, they're gonna set a timer, or also deliver me the news. And that's why you see that all the sides of Advertising Week, publishers, brands, tech companies are voice, it's a thing because consumers have so much access to it.
Well, we love your insight. Thanks for joining us here on Future Boutique. Kerry Flynn, marketing reporter for Digiday.
Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it. Our final episode here at Advertising Week New York 2018. Thanks for tuning in to Future Boutique. Thanks for all the guests that joined us. I learned a lot from you. Hopefully our viewers learned a lot. And make sure you stay connected with us on the socials at Bing Ads. And of course, I have to thank my co-host, Jillian Lax. Thank you so much.
Couldn't have done it without me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely
Oh,
not.
yeah, you're the
Definitely
CMO
not.
now. You're definitely the CMO.
I mean, I showed up here. I don't quit this job till it's done, and I'll be at your next event, right?
Oh, yes, we'll make sure you're at the next event. We'll make sure you're at the next
Got you
event.
something very nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Awesome. All right, we'll connect with you either at Consumer Electronics Showcase, South by Southwest, or Cannes Lions.
With me. See you there.
With Jillian.
That wraps up 2018 Advertising Week. We had a really great time here. Would love to see you next year. See all these credits? You can be in it. Just keep following Future Boutique. And I also love that Geoff did all the really hard work and I get to have the last word and wrap this up. So better luck next year, Geoff. I don't know. I'm not switching jobs with you. No.